here, and we will go in. Hopefully, I'm recording now. 3, 2, 1. All righty. Welcome into the SICTR Second. John Schaefer back with you, episode 8. This time we're joined by Willey, Makerspace Supervisor for the Heavy Metal Shop down here in the Student Innovation Center at Iowa State. And welcome in, Rick.
Oh, thank you.
Rick is a newer addition to our team here, but a longtime member of Iowa State, or at least the programs around Iowa State in a sense. First off, Rick joined us back in December, right?
Yep, mid-December.
All righty. Where'd you move up from?
I came up from north central Texas, so the DFW area.
All righty. And really, though, you're familiar with Ames. You have a little bit of background up here.
Yes, I went to school here for a while back in the early 90s. Okay. So 91 through like 95.
Any great memories from those 90s era of Iowa State?
Well, we weren't as good at football. That was one. That was an era we can forget. But we also, was back in the days of Visha. So there's a lot of memories there that we probably don't need to discuss. But
can't bring those up anymore, right?
But they're good memories.
Good. And what did you study while you were at Iowa State?
I was in industrial technology, but back when it was old. Still back in the College of Ed, and I believe that building was an old vet med school or vet med building from way back. So have since moved and to bigger and better things.
Yeah. What's it been like kind of wandering campus or seeing campus and how it's changed or evolved since you were back here back in the 90s?
It has definitely improved as far as a lot of buildings that are new that weren't here since the last time I was around. But then again, there's familiarity. There's still a lot of the old stuff still around and places that I was in and classrooms and things like that. So there's a little bit of both.
Yeah. And for you to be in the newest building on campus, kind of got to be a fun little moment for you as you walked into the Student Innovation Center the first time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so much has changed over the, 30 years. So, I left here, it was, late December 95. So almost 30 years ago when I moved to West Lafayette to Purdue. So yeah, it's definitely different, but at the same time, it's kind of neat to see the changes that have come about. The dorms have drastically changed since what they were 30 years ago. You got the food courts and stuff that are different than what they were back. And again, it's kind of neat because we're also right down the road from Friley, which is where my freshman year is where I was living.
Okay.
So kind of a neat, you're able to still go around and see things that,
Very cool. Well, and let's kind of progress through after you graduated Iowa State. What was next? You mentioned West Lafayette, Purdue, and kind of walk us through your career.
Well, over the years, when I first got out, I worked mainly as a kind of a manufacturing engineer is where I spent most of my career. Quality engineer. I've had a lot of titles, field engineer, all kinds of different things that I've done. Most of it's all been centered around a vast portion of it is around automotive industry. So I've spent time in many assembly plants around the country, around the world, mostly working for international companies. Mm-hmm. A lot of that time, hence where I'm in the heavy metals lab area here at Iowa State, the reasons most of that career was also spent somewhat associated with machining.
Okay.
So we did, I've first got out, I kind of worked with probably the first big one that I talk about to spend any time with would be the Toyota Group. Mm-hmm. Worked with them, so I got to spend time in Japan and then learning the Toyota production systems and things like that. Then I went on to work for a company out of Europe, mm-hmm. and there I was a quality engineer.
Okay.
And we make camshafts. So a lot of my stories, I was faculty. Also, I was a faculty member before coming here. I spent 14 years as a faculty member within the Texas A&M system before coming here.
Okay.
I was a coordinator of industrial technology there also at that school. So, like I said, I have a very vast, differing background across time. I've worked for big companies. I worked for the last job I was working in manufacturing was with a family-run business, so very small.
Yeah.
But again, we were servicing GM, General Motors, and stuff, so it was all we were a supplier for General Motors.
Okay.
So again, it all associates back. I started to say there a second ago was that as a faculty member and things that people have heard a lot of stories. A lot of my stories come from the camshaft business and industry, and I spent a lot of time in that.
How much have you enjoyed kind of imparting your knowledge and experience on students, and going back to your time with the Texas A&M system, and then even here with the student orgs that you're working with in the heavy metal shop?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I bring to the table especially for from the faculty side of things, and again, it's associated with same here, is I always kind of say I don't pat myself on the back much, and I tend to say that I'm not the most technical savvy, the people that I've ever worked with, but my skill set really goes into being able to relate with people and the people skills, and I think that was great for me when I was in the faculty role, because it offset some of the others that we had who were very technical savvy, were great people that I worked with, very knowledgeable individuals. But I brought a different aspect to it, and I try to make sure that the students get out there, know how to relate, how do you deal with people, because that's a key role that we don't really necessarily emphasize a lot in education. We worry about the technical side,
Yep.
but the other soft skills is where being able to communicate, and relate. Those two things will get you a lot farther than you think. You have to have that technical ability too in our fields, but again, being able to communicate.
Yeah.
People just don't realize.
Right. Well, you look at manufacturing world, that type of stuff, you work within team environments. You're constantly having to, have interpersonal skills. You're also, if you want to evolve and grow in those roles, management, that type of thing, you have to know how to communicate with your team members and manage people. And so those are important skills that you've probably picked up over time and probably had to learn on the job a little bit too.
Yeah. I mean, when I first got out, I tell my students all the time was, when I got out, I was nervous getting up and talking in front of people. Now I said, there's a level of it in which you just get up and where it's not that you don't care, but you just don't associate in your head anymore, where you're just like, okay, you just roll with it and it just comes naturally. But you can't do that until you get up and just forced to do it over and over. And finally you get to that point.
What are some of the coolest projects you've had the opportunity to work on professionally?
Most of the things that I've done have not been like on projects that were probably what I would say trend setting or anything really crazy. Most of the stuff that I was doing have already been associated, or they were already set in place. Yeah. So they would be, just, off the top of my head, I just can't think of anything that was just really, fascinating. But I guess one of the in a weird way, and very odd way, when we took over the camshaft business, I worked for a company that we went in and we basically were given the business from Ford, and we were not allowed to say anything as we were going into this because we were taking the business away from somebody else.
Right.
And doing that and the way it went down and the way everything had to be done and stuff like that it was kind of neat in a way, but it was also pretty nerve-wracking at the same time, because we were doing things before we really knew whether they were going to work or not. And you weren't able to, in that environment, we weren't able to communicate with a lot of the resources that you would normally would have worked with. Right. So we kind of went against what we tell everybody to do.
Yeah.
And so it makes it a little kind of, it spices things up a bit, but it also a lot more pressure on you.
In those settings, were you able to kind of see innovation and creativity firsthand and see how things were evolving or changing?
Yeah, I mean, again, as the time's gone, going back to that whole aspect of things, going back 30 years when I started in with like a Toyota group and stuff, and what we were doing there, and the work that is being done now and the way in which it's being done in manufacturing and machining especially, is just, night and day difference. There's just so much different, the amount of the equipment that you use, without getting into the technical jargon of it, just how it's done now compared to then, and how much faster things can be done, and things that are done that weren't even thought about being, tried
Yeah.
30 years ago. So yes, but in a kind of a different way. Like I said, the company that I worked for, the European company, we were mostly automotive. Now they're doing, because I still have some connections there, and they're doing stuff with motorcycle, Harley and other brands. And back when I was there, we were mainly just really a lot of it was Ford.
Yeah.
And now they're, over all different brands. I mean, they were one of them that worked with the when they started developing the Hemi engine. So, but that was kind of right after I left, so I couldn't bring that up as something that would have been cool. But I was kind of out of my time frame there. But
Yeah.
but it's kind of cool to see that evolution of where I was at and how they've trended and kept up, and things are going differently. And again, with other industries also, and talking with the students, they're doing things differently than the way I was taught
Yeah.
how to do them. And some of it's starting to show a little bit my age, but I'm trying to show them different ways of doing it than probably what I was shown.
Yeah. And for you too, as well, how have you leveraged some of those contacts you still have in the industry to help what you're doing here or even in your past roles?
Well, I have still got connections with a lot of different people that are in industry or people that are associated in the trades. And I have one resource that I go back to, especially from Texas, who's a good friend, and he's a family-run business, and they've been in the machining business forever. And I'll text him, call him, and say, "Hey, I'm doing this. So what do you think?" And he gives me feedback, or
Yeah.
so it's all about, again, showing the kids also that those connections you make early or later in life, I mean, you keep those and you want to use those, but you don't want to abuse them, but you want to keep those associations. You don't want to burn those bridges and write people off. Again, back to the communications. You see a lot of me as a lot of the communication things is a key role. But yeah, and also keeping in touch with the friends, like I said, the people that I knew that were back with the European company, that seeing how they're doing things differently now. And I've got friends over in Austria. I've got different places. So it's kind of I got to go. I had a work visa for Brazil back in the day. Wow. I mean, so I've spent a lot of time in Canada. So we've talked before we went on was about hockey and stuff, and being able to. It's definitely a different environment setting up there during the playoffs, and sitting and having some cold drinks and watching multiple games on the screen at the same time.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, and to that point too, you never stop learning. I think that's one aspect too. I think you can never know everything. And that's okay.
Absolutely.
Right? I think especially when you get into machining and manufacturing, you can't know everything. You have to rely on others. And that's a fun fact.
Yes. And you have to learn that you have to learn that you can't have all that knowledge. And, it'd be great if you could. But again, I kind of kid around with the students. I was like, if you knew everything, nobody could afford to hire you. So, how are you going to work this out? But
right.
But yeah, you got to be able to make those connections and to be able to, you got to have that mind where, like we're keying off of here, is the whole innovation and the mindset and the openness of thought and bringing out new things, new ideas. You have to have that, but you also have to be able to go back and know, how do I associate that new knowledge, or what am I going to do with it, or who can I talk to? Because you can't know every side of this, the business side, the technical side, the sales side. I mean, there's so many different things that take part in this that it's bigger than just you. So now back to the communication. How do I work this out, and who do I work with?
Yeah. Well, I've got to point out too, as we see Rick walking around, you wear a Haas hat occasionally.
Yes.
And I got to ask about the Haas ties for you, or the NASCAR ties a little bit. I know you're a racing fan as well.
Yes. So I've gotten one of the key areas that I've gotten to see a lot of. I guess I don't think it necessarily as work, but it was. But I got associated with the Haas Group, the Haas Foundation, the H-Tech. Kind of shout out to them. Haas has done a lot for education, especially the K-12, but have been very nice and to the universities also.
Mm.
I got associated with them, and during COVID, I got associated a lot more with the Haas racing team. They provided some opportunities for some of us that we got to take part in some activities and things during COVID that was with the race team, and we were all connected and Zoom meetings and things like that. And, and then it come down back to the H-Tech and things. We were able to get money was provided from the Haas Foundation to provide scholarships for students. Matter of fact, here at the Innovation Center, some of our teams also have some foundation money that's been given to them for their team competitions. So Haas has been very, very good to me. I got to go to a race at the Texas Motor Speedway and sit in the pits and on the box during the race with the Haas team. And, there's no money that could be associated with that because, you couldn't pay for that kind of adventure.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a neat day.
For you, had you been a NASCAR fan prior to that experience with Haas, or I mean, automobiles obviously in your background?
Yeah, I started going. I think I'm totally guessing here to some extent, but probably the first Daytona 500 I went to, would have probably been around 74 or something like that, somewhere in that ballpark.
Back in the rough and tumble days of NASCAR.
Back in the Richard Petty days, and I'm pretty sure that I saw I was at the race. Was that Michigan? The last race that Petty won, maybe.
Okay,
and I may be totally full of it there.
Right,
but I definitely got to see him race, and I was at the 79 race. I remember that. There were 82, 80. So I went. Yeah. My dad was, for whatever reason, was a big Daytona fan, and he and I would go down and go to the race, and cool. I lived in Indiana, so it was a jaunt. But I would take a couple days off school when we would travel down and back, on a extended weekend kind of thing.
Timely, considering the 500 was just a couple weekends ago now.
Yeah.
So another good race out there. Let's circle it back into kind of what we were talking about. You mentioned foundation money helping out some of these teams down here. What's going on right now in the heavy metals and the student organization shop? I know it's build season. What's that look like?
Well, the groups are down here pretty much from 9 to 8 at night, building their projects that they're however I want to say it. Their equipment and things that they're going to, the Baja team, you got the solar car, they're working, sitting here, I'm just Formula SAE, those guys. I see one of the, one or two of those guys every morning at 9 o'clock. They're my alarm clock.
Cardinal Space Mining's down here.
Mining's doing some stuff too. I saw the Aero team. They built a mock-up of a plane, so they put wings and stuff on it the other day.
Okay.
So everybody's in the full stride of trying to build, because most of the competitions tend to happen towards like within a couple of weeks of finals. Okay. And then some are also during the summer. Yeah. So I've only been here, a few months. So I don't have all that in total grasp yet, right. But I know that comes up in like early May is when they kind of start. And then I think they kind of finish up maybe like in June.
Well, we only gave you a month to really acclimate before we threw you to the wolves there a little bit, huh?
Yeah, we're going pretty strong now. We've got some, with the equipment we've got, and we have people who are working down here in the basement. And we also have people that are working up on the first floor. So we utilize the lab upstairs also for teams, when we need to. But those guys they're going 100% right now. So yeah. They're getting material in, and they're trying to try things. And, sometimes they'll come in and they're like, can we do this? And I'm like, well, I don't know, because again, back to that, you're talking earlier about we can't know it all. I'm not going to say no, but I don't exactly have, an idea of how we're going to do it. As a matter of fact, I had a student this week, I think it was earlier this week, we went around, and I like showing them this, and I like showing them that I'm not above it at all, that when they come up with an idea, I was like, hey, or a question, I was like, let's go upstairs. Let's ask some other people. I said, I have an idea. Here's my idea. Let's go see what somebody else has seen or what they think. And so I went upstairs and asked a couple of different people, well, what's your thoughts? And then we made a decision off of that because I'm all for if somebody's got a better idea than me, let's try it. And talking about the SAE, the formula team, one of the individuals wanting to do a project that I was like, I don't know if it'll work or not. I think it's worked out well.
Good
for him. And, I was like, I told you, I didn't know if it'd work. I didn't think it necessarily would, but he made it work and showed, I learned something. So again, back to that, you're always learning something. I come from a production standpoint where we're making millions of parts a year. This is new to me in the environment of making 1, 2, 10 parts at a time. So we're more of a job shop here instead of a production.
Right.
So it's a lot different environment, and you're trying a lot of new things that you may not have done before, or you don't know whether it's going to work or not, or you may have to do it over again because the way you tried it, something didn't work out. So
that kind of goes with prototyping and innovation to the extent, right?
Yeah, and that's what these students are getting exposed to on these teams, is being able to do that and have that exposure. And it sounds like from what I'm hearing out of them, the students who are graduating, that's bringing them into jobs because these people are going out to these competitions and they're looking for people and they're talking to them and asking them if they're wanting a job. So when they get out, they're having, more than one opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing you hit on there is humility. You got to have some humility and put your ego aside a little bit. And then too, just again, that collaboration effect of, there are a lot of ideas out there in the world and not all of them might be perfect, but maybe something will lead you into a better solution.
Well, and again, a simple project that I had as a faculty member. I basically was a faculty member. I did the first class that a lot of these students came into our department in technology. They did their first class, and I was also the one that did the capstone course. So I had the first and the last that they were kind of in.
Yeah.
And one of the first projects we do was just making a sheet metal box. And it's like you make one, and I was very forgiving in the grading of it because I anticipated that most of those students never made something like that.
Right.
Until I got there, I'd never made one. So, you hope that you gain knowledge from that first experience, that if I gave you the second one, it's going to be a lot better than your first one.
Right.
So, and that's what you got to kind of instill and give them confidence that that's the way you learn, and that's part of learning.
Yeah.
It's not bad that, if you learn from your mistakes, there's something gained.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. I'm going to finish up the questioning side of this as to what does innovation mean to you? It's a question we ask everyone that comes on this podcast, but what does innovation mean to you?
Well, I think it's more, it's along those lines of how do you use the knowledge that you've got and bring something more to the table? Is it innovation or education? All that goes together, whether we're talking, going from a master's degree to a PhD, or we're talking about an entrepreneurship that you're building the next new rocket.
Yeah.
I mean, the innovation's different for different individuals. Again, that's a nice thing about the center here, is that we're not just looking for engineering students. We're looking at all these different areas because you all bring different things to the table.
Yeah.
And again, the collaboration that goes into the innovation is where the magic starts happening,
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Now, as we always do, 5 quick fire questions for you. These most likely don't tie into innovation in any way, but give us a deeper dive into you a little bit more. So we'll get it going if that's all right with you.
Okay.
You lived in Texas for quite a bit of time, so I need to know the best barbecue spot you've had, and what do you base good barbecue on?
Wow. I'm not a real good foodie here. But without using any real big names, actually, the one that I would give the biggest shout to from my experience, where I was teaching at was in Stephenville, Texas. And they got a R&R barbecue, which was just a small little place.
Yeah.
And they actually were very, very good. they were underrated.
Yeah.
And most of us that were in the department, that's where we tended to eat, quite a bit. So I found that some of the bigger places that you heard about weren't necessarily the best ones I kind of tended to like the smaller
hole in the walls.
Yes, the ones that had a little.
So do you base your barbecue off of the brisket, or do you base it off of like the ribs?
Yeah, I'm not a big brisket person.
Okay.
So, yeah. I'm not a, but yeah, and where I probably again why I'm not in Texas now is I'm not a real big smoker person, so that was kind of but yeah, I like to say you can't be in Texas very long and not eat brisket.
Yeah.
So good brisket's good. I don't mean it that way, but I just wasn't. That wasn't my biggest. But you gotta love ribs.
Yeah, can't beat good ribs, right? All righty. So you also ride motorcycles. What's your dream motorcycle?
Oh, hey, that's a big one. I would, there's different avenues there's some old bikes that I would like to have that were back in the day, and those probably wouldn't be what people would really probably think I would want. But, there was back in the 80s, there were you had the V65s and things that were just pushing the limits back in those days. Not that they were the greatest bikes in the world,
right.
But, it would be kind of cool. Some of the new Harley stuff that that's out there, I just the CVOs and things like that are really neat and would love to have one. I don't think I want to spend that much money, but and I just bought a new little bike to ride around town here. So a new little Ninja. So, I guess that's my midlife crisis.
Definitely not a midlife crisis. Smart investment on that side. What's your favorite NASCAR track?
To watch and to be around, and I've never been there in person, which is kind of surprising, but is probably Bristol.
I was gonna guess
Bristol is that's I can remember when it was in a bowl, when it wasn't surrounded with grandstands. So I mean, I go back and but yeah, that's something I'll go see. I want to see that. I like the smaller tracks. I think the bigger tracks, there's some of the hubbub right now that online, if you go out there, is the big tracks aren't what they aren't what they used to be. I'm not saying they're
right.
bad, and I'm not saying
the racing,
but they're different.
Yeah,
it's very different than what it was.
Yeah.
So you get back to the small tracks and you get a little more the racer involved in it instead of just luck and car. And
didn't they throw dirt on Bristol last year or something like that?
Yeah, for a couple of years.
Yeah, you're not a fan of that, are you?
I was not. That was again. I have some allegiance with some people that there were better ways that could have been handled that were told to NASCAR that NASCAR didn't want to do.
Well, and just remember, you're still a dirt track guy. You want to get down to Knoxville and check out some sprints. So it's not.
I will definitely. I have been to Knoxville before, so that wouldn't be new to me. But yes, I definitely want to go over there. Hell, I'm going to go over to Boone to see some local stuff too, just to have good times. And that's where it all kind of starts, is at the local tracks, and then they go up, and these guys advance and get there's luck involved, money involved, and a lot of things. But yes,
a lot of fun either way.
Yes. Gotta have fun.
Gotta have fun. That's key number one. All righty. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I'm a pineapple person, so I can do that. But
you and me both, brother.
Does it go on pizza? I can see where it's not a big thing for most people, but I can do it.
I preach the combo: pepperoni, pineapple, and jalapeno. You get some spicy, some sweet, and some salt in there. So
that's a different combination.
Yeah, but don't knock it till you try it.
I would. I'm a big jalapeno person, so
maybe,
that's not
maybe
a
I'll
problem.
call over to Pete's and get them to make one up for me and bring it over.
Yeah, that was I can get into that.
Right.
I'm definitely a spicy kind of person, and I love the pineapple.
All righty. Last question for you: the tool that you can do the most with in heavy metals.
Wow, that's a loaded question too. Depends on how we're defining a tool, because a tool could be anything. So, actually, I'd go with it in a totally different aspect and say it's a person.
Yeah.
They are the tool that gets it done. So basically, them being able to go in and learn and be able to operate all the different equipment and being able to use those tools that are there provides them with the opportunity to make the most out of it. So I think that's a little different way of looking at it. But, because all the tools that we have bring different things to the table. But if the operator doesn't know how to use them.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point. Well, if you want to get some training from Rick over in heavy metals, go to our website, SICTR.iastate.edu. Rick, thanks so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you here. Obviously, a lot of great insights there, and certainly looking forward to seeing what you guys keep building over here and what you're helping out with students over here.
We'll see how the competitions go this year.
That's
so hopefully they go well. We all forgot about the snowmobile team, and that was another group that they're trying and getting out there. They were actually had some snow so they could go out and run the thing, but. Yeah, it is definitely an interesting group of people as far as the whole area.
Oh yeah. Well, and snow. Thank goodness we got 5 or 6 inches at that one. Otherwise, they would have had to go way up north to Minnesota.
Yes.
So, all righty. Well, thanks so much, and we'll be right back here on the SICTR Second with a look at the events coming up in the building. So once again, a big thank you to Rick Willey for coming in to talk about all the things that he has done and throughout his career, all the things he's looking forward to at SICTR as well. And if you want to sign up for training with Rick, go to our website, SICTR.iastate.edu. Also on that website, you'll find a list of all of our events going on. I just want to highlight a few happening in our building. Let's start with March 5th, 11 to 2 p.m. On the first floor of SICTR, you've got the Graduate School Fair. At this fair, you'll get the opportunity to ask questions and meet with various graduate departments, on campus admissions professionals, and graduate support staff who can help you on your graduate school journey. They look forward to seeing you there. Again, 11 to 2 on the first floor of SICTR on March 5th. Also happening March 5th, busy day, I got to mention. 2 to 5 p.m., the pitch-off finale up in the launch pad on the 4th floor. That is in room 4250. Students who competed in the college-by-college pitch-off and placed move on to the finale. This event is open to the university and the public. Go ahead and check that out. Also on March 5th, 4 to 5 p.m. in 1118, SICTR's info session. You must register under the events tab on our website. There's a link there. Go to that, register for it. If you want to learn more about the Cornerstone program for young entrepreneurs at Iowa State, attend the upcoming info session on all things SICTRs. Get specific details about the 11-week summer program and the application process and answering any questions. Again, you must register for that. 4 to 5 p.m., 1118 is the room number on March 5th here inside of SICTR. That's a wrap on episode 8 of the SICTR Second. We'll see you back here for episode 9.